Well, hi everyone and welcome. I think we'll get started. I'm Kathy Schmitz, Executive Director for the Vilas County Economic Development Corporation. Thank you for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn How to Develop a Business Plan with our guest speaker, Ray Bergen. Before we begin, we extend our special thanks to Associated Bank for their generous support of this program and our mission to help new and existing business owners with business planning and financial guidance, marketing and social media, educational programs like today, all at no charge. So, about our speaker. Ray serves as a SCORE volunteer, and SCORE stands for the Service Corps of Retired Executives, which offers mentorships for startups or small businesses. And Ray has extensive executive and hands-on experience in business operations, both large and small, and spent 20 years in manufacturing and quality control. Having worked at a billion-dollar company and then his own small business, Ray has experience in marketing and strategy, focused on developing business plans, budgets, and analyzing financial documents. He helps business owners identify the strengths and weaknesses of their business, competitive advantages, and uses the information to develop strategies for growth. And so, what questions do you have for Ray? Please put them in the chat and we'll answer them right after his presentation. So, with that, Ray, take it away.
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. Today, we're going to talk about three things. One, just a little bit about SCORE and what we do. I actually knew what SCORE stood for, which not many people do. But we'll talk about the services we provide. Then we'll get into the business plan. Why do you want a business plan? Why does a bank want a business plan? And then what are the different parts and the steps in developing a business plan? SCORE provides services for the whole life of your business, from whether you want to start up a business or whether you want to sell a business. And we do that three ways. Our main way is providing business advice and mentoring. And we, as Kathy said, are volunteers. All our services are for free. And we can start with one subject and go to a different one. Whenever you don't need our services anymore, that's when we're done. But we provide our main service through mentoring. But we do offer training. I've done workshops at Nicolet College. I've done workshops at Oneida County. And we share a lot of information on our website. So you can go to score.org. You don't have to be mentored. You go to score.org. There's lots of workshops, webinars, blogs, a lot of stuff on social media now. But that's a great resource, I think, for people even if they don't need to be mentored. Some people ask, how can one person be able to cover all the topics that might come up? How do they know about my industry? Well, the answer is we don't. But we have a chapter of mentors in Wisconsin that if I can't answer it, I go get a co-mentor and we co-mentor together. So throughout our chapter, I think we can cover almost any topic. What we focus on is a number of things: creating a business concept and business plans, startup costs, funding sources, and LLC. Those are really for startups. And I think 90% of my calls are probably the first three. Many people want to know about, I have no money, but I need a lot. And we try to work through that and how to get that. We try to develop marketing and sales strategies for startups as well as current business, develop budgets, pricing strategies. I think small businesses struggle the most with pricing. And you can lose a lot of profitability by not getting your pricing right. We develop process improvement and expense reduction plans for current businesses, and we will help you sell the business if you need that. We'll find the resources. We don't actually sell it, but we will help you find the resources to get that done. Many people come and say, I need a business plan. And I ask, well, why do you need a business plan? Well, the bank wants one. And I think that's the main reason people come to SCORE for a business plan. But I, as talking with Kathy, also believe that any business, whether they need funding or not, should have a business plan. It's your strategy. It's your path forward. It's defining what the business will look like, defining how you're going to make money. But going back, I'd say again, most of my calls are for business plan are the bank wants a business plan. And why does a bank want a business plan? Well, it defines the business. The first step in a business plan is describe the products and services. I had two young ladies wanted to start a bakery and it was going to be gluten free. And we tried to define, well, are you going to sell just gluten free? Are you going to sell everything? You're going to sell non-gluten free. What products? Is it bread? Is it blah, blah, blah? But you're defining, the products and the equipment you need to make those products. You're defining the geography and the customer base. Am I going to be just in Rhinelander or Minocqua, or am I going to be statewide, or am I going to be in 3 counties? And most importantly, I think it defines your competitive advantage. What's going to be special about your business that people will come to you rather than competitors that are already out there? But it really defines to the banker, how big is this business going to be? How small is it going to be? What's it going to look like? And it allows them to understand what you're proposing. It also details what you want the money for. So if you want $50,000, $100,000, they're going to ask you to create a list of what do you need the money for. It also gives them the financial information, projected sales, and profitability. I would say almost every banker will read the words in the beginning, but they'll go back to the 3-year cash flow and look at that. That's what they're looking for, is how much money do you think you're going to make? That business plan gives them an idea of how much do you understand about your business? How much do you understand about finances? How much do you understand about how much money your business is going to make? Because the last bullet, they want to get paid back. The banker is looking for in your business plan, how will they pay me back? And they're going to judge the believability of it, and the thoroughness of the business plan. And they're also going to base it against other customers, similar types of businesses to yours. I was with a client at a banker, and he knew the bakery financials, the cost of goods sold for bakeries. He knew a lot of that information. So they're able to judge the thoroughness of your business plan by their knowledge of the industry also. But as we said, I think it's great to create your own business plan, whether you need the money or not. But the bank is number one thing about a business plan is they want to see that they're going to get paid back. So what are the steps to creating that business plan, and what is in a business plan? Well, first of all, you're describing your business and you're including the products and services. I get a lot of landscapers, and I say, well, are you just going to cut grass, or are you going to build retaining walls and pave driveways? Because it depends, how much equipment you need, depending on what the products and services. But so in some detail, you're going to need to describe what am I going to sell and how am I going to make money? And then you define the goals for your business. Are you looking to be a one-man show for the rest of your life? You looking to get to 100 employees? Are you looking to get to some financial goals? They're going to look for what are the goals for this business, both short and long term. Where will you be in a year? Where will you be in 5 years? And who is your target customer? Let's go back to the landscaper. Is it seniors? Is it people who don't want to do landscaping like tourists? Is it people that go away for the winter? But who is your target customer, and what unmet need do they have that you're trying to fulfill? So again, why would they come to you versus somebody else? And that goes back to the competitive advantage. That's a big thing, I think. A lot of people overlook, and they're just Me Too businesses. It's like the tavern business. People say I want to be a sports bar. Well, you ask them what is that going to look like? Well, I'm going to have 4 TVs and hamburgers. And well, that's kind of like every sports bar in this area. So how are you going to be different? Because that competitive advantage makes a big difference of, will people come to you or will they stay with their current provider? Detail your pricing strategy. how are you going to price your product? You're going to be at like Walmart at the low end of the price, low cost, low end of the price range? Are you going to be like Nordstrom's at the high end? And why? The more you're meeting an unmet need, the more you have a competitive advantage, the better off and the higher pricing that you can charge. And pricing makes a huge difference in your profitability. If you raise prices 10%, your profitability goes up 10%. I find a lot of small businesses want to start very low to get their foot into the door, they'll tell me. It's also very hard to raise prices once you start up your business, but we will help with what should your pricing be. And then outline your marketing and sales strategy. I ask a lot of startups, how are you going to tell people you're in business? You got a great idea, but how are you going to tell people you're in business? And they'll say word of mouth. And word of mouth is very good, but it's very slow. And for a startup, I think you need to have a very outlined marketing and sales strategy. How are you going to tell people that you're out there? Then you need to develop the financial projections. We'll get into that a little bit, but the bank is going to look very hard at that. They want to see, like we talked about, that the profitability that you're making is going to pay back the loan. And then lastly, what do you want the loan for? And we'll go into some of the things that you might consider when you make up that list. The hardest part when I talk to people in a startup is describing or trying to project their revenue. They go, how do I do that? I'm not in business. So how do I project the revenue? We've talked about describing the product and services and the problem you are solving, but you need to estimate the revenue. So we just did it with this gluten-free bakery. They went and we went to some trade association websites and we could find how many people, percent of the population are looking for gluten-free. Then we took that percentage and we found the population of per geography, which is going to be local for now, the Rhinelander and outlining areas. And we estimated that population at 30,000. And we could come up with an estimate of how many customers she might have in a given year. And then we kind of estimated what would be the average sales per customer. And we kind of went and said, what's your estimated target share or the share of the gluten-free bakery market in Rhineland? So we took all of those and came up and did the math and came up with a number. We looked at it and it was actually a fairly sizable number. And we just decided that most small businesses aren't going to reach that in 1 year. So we cut it back, but we did the work. We got information about the market that they were in, the industry that they were in, estimated the amount of customers that they're going to get in their geography, and then did an annual ticket or what annual sales per customer, and we came up with the revenue. And actually, the banker never even questioned that. I think they're looking for reasonableness. Did you do the work? Did you go through the calculations? Is it reasonable? I had a customer, a client that wanted to get into doing gaming videos. And he said that the average gaming video makes $10 million a year. I didn't want to say that may be possible, but not probable. The banker's going to look for reasonableness, but don't be scared by estimating the revenue. You just have to be able to get within a reasonable estimate of the revenue. The banker's not looking for getting it to the nearest dime. He's looking for getting it to the nearest 10,000. And then determine how you'll compete against the current players in the market. Go back to the landscape. Are you going to compete on price? You're going to compete on service. You're going to compete on great service. Think of Amazon when you think of that. When people go to Amazon, think of 20 years ago, getting something the next day and getting it for a low price. But there's different ways to compete. There's the Walmart model, low cost, lower quality. Then there's the Nordstrom model, high quality, high service, high priced. And then there's all different ways to compete, but you got to kind of pick your poison. Being somewhere in the middle is usually not, you don't want to be middle priced, middle quality. You want to try to be on one end or the other. And then list your current competitors and your share of the market. Let's go back to the bakery. Direct competitors are bakeries, right? But who's their indirect competitors? There's gas stations, there's grocery stores, there's actually the person at home that makes their own bakery. You have to kind of figure out, why would they come to you? Even why would somebody, rather than cook it at home, why would they come to your bakery? Now, let's go back to gluten-free. An unmet need, right? Gluten-free is a need that's not being met in the market. If you just start up a bakery offering donuts and bread, that doesn't mean you won't be successful. It's just going to be harder to compete. And then again, we go back to pricing. How will you price the product? To develop the financial information, we need to, again, develop the sales projections. We kind of went over that. Estimate the size of the customer base, how many customers, how much customers will buy annually, and develop the sales projections. Then the next part, though, of profitability is, once you've determined the revenue, is your expenses. What are the costs of making that product? For the bakery, what's the cost of all the ingredients that go into that? And again, a lot of people get stuck on that. How do I know? Well, we're estimating it. And there's a lot of trade association data out there that can help you with that. You need to estimate your utilities, professional fees, rent, insurance. So all these expenses are probably easier than estimating revenue, but you need to list them and you need to be reasonable. Determining what your rent will be, or your loan or your lease payments, a big part of a startup business. Then determine the profitability, and depending on the lender, you may need cash flow and balance sheets along with personal financial information. So the banker is going to say, I want to see that the business can pay back the loan, but I also want to see that you can pay back the loan if your business fails. And then the last thing is outline, how are you going to tell your customers about yourself? Which media will you advertise and why? So I get a lot of discussions with people about, my business is stagnating and I know I need to market myself better. How do I do that? There's a lot of different people out there trying to get your marketing dollars. TV, radio, newspaper. I always say, determine your budget. How much are you going to spend? If you've got $1,000 to spend, well, you're not going to do TV. Pick your media, pick your poison. You can't do them all. You can't do TV, radio, newspaper, online. But I always try to start with, who are you trying to reach? So if you're trying to reach seniors, you're probably not going to use social media. If you're going to try to reach 24-year-olds, you're probably going to use social media, right? So determine who your target market is, pick the media type based on that segment. I always try to ask, if somebody's looking for your new service, how will they try to find you? Are they going to go to the newspaper? Are they going to go on the internet? Are they going to go on social media? How will people search for you? And people say, well, I have a website. And I say, well, nobody's going to Google your website. They're going to Google gluten-free bakery because they don't know the name of the website. So you also, if you depended on your website, you got to make sure it comes up on Google searches. Actually, the people who are pretty good at helping you with that now are the Yellow Pages. Yellow Pages used to be just a print media. Now they're into developing websites and helping people with that. And then my last point is, follow up to make sure your marketing is working. Ask people, how did you hear of me? How did you get a hold of me? How did you find out about me? Because you can spend a lot of money and not reach a single customer. So, all right, that's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Great, thank you, Ray. Well, people are putting their questions in the chat, and please feel free to do so, and we'll take those one at a time. Ray, I have a question for you. What I hear from business owners is sometimes this can be really overwhelming, right? To put that business plan together. So what would
Yes.
your advice be to them about, how do you even start? These are all great questions and things to think about. I think there's always an urgency to want to put it together like right away. And what we've always shared is take your time and over a few weeks, put some notes together and put more notes together and then start putting them in sections and in a folder. And before you know it, you've kind of got your plan or an outline of a plan put together. What recommendation do you make to people so we can make this less overwhelming for them?
I learned the hard way. I started sending them the SCORE business plan template, and it was 20 pages long, and I never heard from them again. Now, what I do is I send out a list of about 5 or 6 questions. And the basic questions to start with: what's your business? What's your products? How are you going to make money? And I say, let's just talk about that. I want you to think about it, write it down, and we'll talk about it. And we'll keep saying, that sounds great. We just need to write it into a business plan, or we need more detail. But my approach is to start, just like you say, just start small. Let's start describing your business, start describing the products. We'll worry about the financials later. If you start with the financials, it's just gonna scare them off. I just can't do it anymore. I do have somebody though that will write a business plan for you. That's different than you doing the work yourself. Some people, it's just not, they just have a very difficult time writing a business plan. We have 2 different ways to do it. Like you say, start small. Let's just write down some answers to some questions and we'll develop the business plan as we go. Or you can work with this gentleman and he'll interview you and write the business plan.
All great information. Thanks, Ray. Another
Yeah.
question that we often get from business owners or people that wanting to go into business is, I'm going to do all of this myself. And what we ask them is, well, what if? It's that what if scenario. So if you're opening up your own business and for some reason or another you can't get there that day, if it is a brick and mortar, do you have someone who can go out then and shovel your sidewalk? What happens if the heat doesn't go on that day? What happens if X? And to just always be prepared for that what if scenario, that they have some type of a backup in terms of that they've thought all of these kinds of things through. What if they have a family and one of the children gets sick and they can't make it in? Or even if it's an online, remote business that they have they thought all of these kinds of things through?
We have a workshop that, the 10 things you need to do before you open your business. And you got to make sure you're customer ready, how you're going to take payments, your sign, all the way to your sign on the front door, to exactly what you're talking about. What happens if something happens? What are your contingency plans? And we do have a workshop on just making sure you're ready to open your door, because the last thing you want, is a bad customer experience or something where a customer goes there and it doesn't look like you're open. But yeah, those are all great questions to ask before they open the door.
Yeah, and this could be such an exciting time for people, right? And that's why we really want to make sure they've thought all of these things through ahead of time and that it's, to your point, it's not just the $50,000, if you will, and I'm making up that number, that they need to open up that brick and mortar business, but it's also, have they thought through that they need insurance for their business and on and on. So those are all good things that they should think about in advance, because one of the worst things that can happen, that if they haven't thought about these things in advance, they find out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later that, oops, I wish somebody would have told me that back then. And then they end up closing or struggling. And that's not what we
Yeah.
want to happen.
In that workshop, one of the recommendations is to go see a lawyer, an accountant, and an insurance agent. The lawyer, just to make sure that in your industry, what are the pitfalls that you could face? The insurance, well, that's kind of self-explanatory. What kind of insurance do I need to protect my own personal assets? And then the third one, the accountant, I find a lot of clients after a year or two do not even know if they're making money, and they're struggling mightily with bookkeeping. We ask them to go see an accountant. You don't necessarily have to pay the accountant. You could hire a bookkeeper, but you're going to need to keep track of all your revenue expenses and your receipts and your employee costs. And there's a lot of stuff when you start adding employees, for example, that you need to know. So, like you say, so you're prepared.
Yeah, and I think we saw that during the last winter, right? The drought conditions that we had from the lack of snow. And it is really important for business owners to think about, and if they can, and not everyone can, but to have that rainy day fund, if you will, to try to get them through some weeks or some months that may not be as planned. You know, for example, in this scenario, we had a really rough winter for business owners in tourism, but we could have a difficult summer as well, you know, if it's rainy and cold. So we don't ever know. And so I think to have that financial background, that knowledge and that ability to think about those things and have that rainy day fund are really important for business owners to think about.
And having a good relationship with your banker is never a bad thing.
And we have some questions coming in, right?
Okay.
There's a question from Ty. Does SCORE have a checklist for the business planning process?
Well, I would say we have a lot of checklists, especially for the business plan. We have a checklist. Like I said, we have the workshop of the 10 things you need to do before you open your door type of things. I would say on score.org, there is a checklist for anything you want. Now, you can contact me and I can help you find it, or you can just go on score.org. But the answer would be, I don't know if it's a checklist, but it would be the steps you need to do to reach this goal or to do this part of your business startup. Either score.org or you can contact me. We can find something.
Great. Deborah asks, I'm more interested in finding out about grants available, and I'm wondering if the business plan would also be necessary. Thank you.
We don't do a lot with grants. SCORE doesn't. Oneida County, I know the Economic Development Corporation seem to do, I know more about grants, but there are some grants that need business plans. Grants are kind of hard to get. They're very competitive. You need to probably be in some industry that the government's looking to subsidize or be a minority or woman-based business. But to answer your question, some grants have a need for a business plan, but I think all grants are fairly cumbersome in filling out the application. So I think you need some form of, maybe not a formal business plan, but some projections of what your business will do in order to get the grant, and or, you know, what's the mission of your business in order to apply for your grant. Maybe you know more about that, Kathy. We are not as tied into grants, SCORE is not, as some of the economic development corporations.
And we do know some, and we do have colleagues just like you do who offer mentorship on that as well. There are grants out there. There are many grants out there. It just depends on what you want them for. There are, you know, specific grants for if you are a woman-owned business, if you are a minority-owned business, if you are a veteran-owned business. So there are certain categories where there are, if you will, maybe even more grants available for those individuals. And so we are delighted to connect business owners with those granting agencies if someone is interested. It's really a combination that they have of both grants and loans. And if it turns out to be a loan, it can be a loan that might be at a lower interest rate than you might find at a bank. It just other organizations out there that will work with you. For example, if you put down maybe a lesser amount, they might cover the other part through investors. So there's different options out there. And I think it's important to kind of take these on a case by case basis to see what they want the funds for and what their long-term strategy is to, as you said, Ray, repay back those loans.
Yeah, I always recommend when people come to me and say, I need, you know, if you need $5,000, there's different funding ways to do that. If you need 50 to 100,000, there's two people I have them go see. One is Economic Development Corporation in the county, but the other one is just go to your banker first. because that bankers should be able to say, yeah, this based on some of the information you gave me, let's proceed. Or they may say, I think you're a ways off. I think you need to gain some personal collateral. I think you need a little more money under your belt. I always say, go to your banker first and have him kind of talk through what are you going to need to get the loan. And then we can write, and sometimes they even have their own business plan template, but then we can write the business plan. I'm not saying you can't do it the other way, but you may save some time and effort by going to the banker first.
My understanding is that there are classes through Nicolet College, and I know that we have some individuals from Nicolet on with us today who maybe can speak to that. And I don't know if through the Jude Foundation that if that program is still available, but it had been where if you were a business owner in Vilas County, you could take that class and be reimbursed for it or take it at no charge. So I don't know if that program is still in existence. I know that Kurt Drum is on the program from Nicolet, and I'd like to invite him to speak.
Hi, Kathy. Good afternoon. Thanks.
Hi, Kurt.
Thanks for asking me. Yes, Nicolet offers both non-credit and for-credit classes in starting a business. We offer the non-credit classes, which are either no charge or minimal charge. They're shorter duration, and we have a number of those that'll be running off and on throughout the year. And then we have the for-credit program in business and entrepreneurship, which is basically a 2-year program that I'm involved with. And the culmination there is doing a business plan for your startup business. Of course, it's a total of 60 credits, so it's a much more involved business plan than the short units. But we offer both of those. NicoletCollege.edu has that, or you can email me if you'd like, cdrum, CDRUMM, at NicoletCollege.edu, and I'd be glad to help you out.
Great, thanks, Kurt. And if you can put your email in the chat, and Ray, you also, but I can send that out to people as well. That'd be great. And Kurt, question for you. Do you know if that program is still available through the Jude Foundation?
I believe it is, but that's not where I spend most of my time. I spend most of my time on the for-credit side.
Right.
But yeah, Tommy Wortman would be able to answer that question. And if you send me an email, I'll be glad to forward it to Tommy.
Great, thank you. And
okay.
For everyone that's registered for today's program, not just those attending, we will send out the recording of this. And please do feel free to follow back up with us and for any other additional questions or information that you might have or want to have a chat with us. Karen has the next comment on here. Local revitalization or Main Street program may have building improvement or sign grants available for new business in their district. So if anyone is looking for anything in downtown Eagle River, they can help you with signage, perhaps for the front of your building business. So
yeah,
thanks,
Rhinelander has that also.
Oh, good. Great. Thank you. So Karen and Ray, thank you for that. Ty, are you seeing people use AI to put business plans together, and does SCORE utilize AI in any way?
So I was riding in the car with my wife, and she's big into AI. And she said, well, they can write a business plan for you. And I said, no, they can't. And she described a local business that she just made up. And she said, I need a business plan. And it came back with the business plan. And now, are you going to have to put your local details in it and your slant on it? But it was amazing what it came back to me. Now, again, all the stuff about market share and revenue, you're going to have to take a look at that, but it does some of the research for you. And if you go back in and say, I need a little more information on this, it'll come back with a little more information on that. So I'm just getting into it. It is amazing. I think it's a good tool and a bad tool. You can't rely on that for the business plan you take to the banker, but it's certainly, if you're not good at writing or don't like writing, it's a great tool.
Yeah, it can definitely be a great start, a great template for people. I know that there's individuals I've worked with here that have started having AI develop contracts for them within minutes. And then, Ray, as you talked about, just personalizing it, if you will. It's a
Yeah.
great way to start it. You have to go over it with a fine-tooth comb, obviously, and anything with contracts you may want to run by an attorney if you can. Definitely use AI as a tool. That's a great way to start that. Kurt said Nicolay uses the SCORE business plan template in our four credit class, but we walk you through it step by step. So thank you for that. Question before that I had, Ray, you were talking earlier about LLCs. I get a lot of those questions. What is exactly an LLC?
Well, it's a limited liability corporation. And the only real difference between that and a sole proprietorship is that it protects your personal assets from your business. So if the business gets sued, they can go after the business assets, but they can't go after your personal assets. Now, you can go to a lawyer to get that set up, or you can Google how to set up a LLC in Wisconsin, and it takes you to the Department of Revenue website. And you can set up the LLC that way. I somewhat like the lawyer because there's certain steps after you set up the LLC in order to keep the LLC that you need to do, like write annual minutes. You have to have LLC on your website and business cards so people know you're dealing with an LLC. But at the end of the day, lots of people form LLCs online, and you do it through the Department of Revenue.
And are there other business designations that people should know about in case they want to go one way or another?
Well, there's S corps and C corps, and that's where I would start talking to an accountant. What are the tax advantages of doing that, and why would you do that? The LLC is mainly to give you that limited liability. S corp and C corps are for different reasons, but that I would talk to an accountant. What would be advantageous for your business?
Yeah. And you know, that's one of the things that we find from business owners is that they are so focused on their day-to-day business, right, as they should be, but they don't have that necessarily that branch expertise. So they're not an attorney, they're not a financial expert. They have pieces of that information, but it's important that they connect with organizations like SCORE, with the Vilas County EDC, Nicolay College, others who can help them, hopefully free of charge. We all do. That's important that they connect with them to make sure they're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's, especially when it comes to tax season. We get a lot of those questions, right? They don't know about QuickBooks, so they're trying to catch up then.
You and I were talking about updating a business plan every couple of years. What I find, even as myself as a small business owner, you're so focused on running it that you don't focus on growing it. Well, especially if you're a sole, if you're the only person in the business, you're right. It's hard not to focus on running it, but you got to focus on growing it also. And you're right. There are a lot of free resources out there to try to help you.
Yeah, and we certainly at the Vilas County EDC, we can certainly help with that. We have experts in marketing and social media and online content. We also have colleagues out there in the community. I know that Dave Mendham is on. There's others who can help in the area that do search engine optimization and Google reviews and social media videos and all kinds of things that we can help with and help guide them. And we're happy to do that. We actually enjoy doing that. So please do reach out. I really appreciate Karen's comment about the signage because I am a huge fan of spending money. If you do have a brick and mortar on signage, when you think about anywhere really in Vilas County, especially with tourism season, you really coming into fruition here in the next month or so, there's typically hundreds, if not thousands of people driving by your business every day. You want signage that stands out and that says, not only the name of your business, but what you do. If it's not clear from the name, what you do. That's such great marketing and such great advertising for people. So don't think of just it being a sign that that's a small thing. That can really help market your business and help you with your branding.
Yeah, I would also say think of the internet that way too. Is that if people are searching for you, what will they find?
Right.
And how easily will they find it? The more easily they can find it and the more information and all the social media marketing, I would say think of it the internet that way also, because Google some of my clients gluten-free bakery, can't find them. So the question is, how are they going to find you on the internet? The same as a storefront. I agree with you, Kathy. Storefronts are critical too.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of Google reviews because if you're up here and you're looking for a restaurant and who's got the 5-star, who's got the 4-star, who's got the 3-star, and you want to be out there with your 4 and 5 stars, and people are looking around for a restaurant, a hair salon, or whatever, and you want to be out there on top.
And one last thing about it, just think about that analogy, the restaurant. There's restaurants that you can find the website, and there's restaurants where you can find the menu. Again, what's the impression that you're giving when people find whatever you have on the internet? Is it customer friendly? Can the customers make a decision on whether to go there, et cetera, et cetera? So
I was just saying the biggest thing too is if they do then call you, return the phone call.
yeah,
Sometimes it's those simple things.
when I bought my business, it was right before the start of the recession, and I had to become a one-man show, and there were so many phone calls I missed. But thank God, for voicemail, because I did call every one of them back. I would say that that's another thing is, make sure the phone's always answered. I think that's critical that they hear a voice here. But that's a little bit because I'm a little older, a little old style, but
Yeah, or text them back.
yeah.
or respond on
Yeah.
Facebook. Before we close, Ray, you are such an experienced executive. You've been in the C-suite, you've been boots on the ground, you've really done it all. And what would your biggest learning be that you could share? What advice would you give the business owners and our colleagues that are on today?
I would say it goes back to that planning process. The better you can outline how you're going to succeed, the better you have a chance of succeeding. There's that old saying that if you don't know where you're going, any path will take you there. And it doesn't need to be always so formal and everything, but you should write down, I always say, start with your goals. The more audacious the goal, the harder it's going to be to get there. But if you set big goals, you can have big success. But I go back to the planning process. How are you going to succeed? I'm not talking about a 20-page business plan, even. I'm talking about write down on a couple pages. What are you going to try to accomplish this year? What are you going to try to accomplish next year? And then create the time to do that. Running the business is going to eat up 90% of your time.
Thank you very much. That's great advice. That's a great way to end the program today. Ray, I want to thank you for all of your advice, your time to put PowerPoint together. Everyone, please know that Ray is available through SCORE to help you. And for some reason, if he can't, there's a whole network of the SCORE volunteers who can. We are here at the Vilas County EDC, myself, our entire board of directors, and all of our colleagues and partners in the community who we work with are here to help you. I want to thank Nicolet College, who's on today, for their help and guidance and letting us know the programming that they offer. So you can see the network that we have here, not only in Vilas County, but here in the Northwoods that can help business owners. And please let your colleagues know out there too, if you run into people that need help or guidance on any of this, to contact us and we will put them in touch with the right people. All of our services are free of charge. We're delighted to help. That's why we're here. We want to see all of you grow. We want to see a strong, vibrant Vilas County economy here, not only in Vilas County, but in all of the Northwoods. With that, stay tuned for more programming from the VCEDC, more lunch and learns and other programming. And we'll let everyone get on with their afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Have a good day.